Frames can be expensive, but they don't have to be. Each of the 13 frames behind me that I'm going to show you today were less than $5 in the United States, and most of them were between $1.50 and $3.50. So if you're wanting to frame lots of watercolors to take them to the next level to use in your own home or even as gifts, I'm going to share where I found these frames, plus 9 tips for getting the framing right and mistakes to avoid. And I'll even frame some new ones on camera. So first, my most reliable place to buy frames is the Dollar Tree. And the frames are $1.25, and I can always find some that I like. I do have to sort through because I don't love all of them, but let me show you some examples. I can't even hold all of my favorites. So these were all from the Dollar Tree. These are from the Dollar Tree. And this one was from the Dollar Tree. I usually like the 4x4 size. They have 8x10s, but I don't always love those. So I prefer to get those from the thrift store. Those two are from the thrift store along with this one. And this was also from the thrift store. Now, some thrift stores may be more expensive, but all of mine were less than $5. So like I don't know how they price them. I think the most I've paid is like $4.75, at least for the ones that I'm showing you. And others will be like $1.75. So this one may have been pricier, maybe $3.75. It had artwork in it on the back of this piece of paper, and it was printed, but it was printed on watercolor like textured paper. So I was a little bit nervous about this one because I honestly didn't like it before I put it in the frame, but I felt like I had to use it and try it because I didn't have paper that was this long to fit in the frame. And so I didn't have a chance to do it over again. This was my one shot. And so I just made it to where I liked it enough. And then once I put it up in the room, I didn't face it this way. It's on a wall, so when you walk in, it's on this, like you're looking at it from the side. So anyway, don't give up on your photos if you don't like them at first. So many times I'll go back and I will really like them. I got these 2 frames free from the side of the road in my old neighborhood, and I actually got them for the art that was already in them, which this one still is, but maybe one day I will change it to a watercolor painting. And I used this one for years before I put this watercolor painting that I did in here. So this one was kind of a lot of work because it has a back that is stapled on, so it's not easy to change out the paper or photo because it's supposed to be a work of art. And it only had where you could hang it vertically, not horizontally. So I had to add this hardware myself, which is fine. I could hang this direction, but I wanted the option. I tucked the paper in through the front, so there's no glass covering it. As you can see, you can tell that this one has more of a glare and shine, and this one doesn't, which is another tip I like. Sometimes I like to have that kind of matte finish. I do try not to buy frames like this that have a difficult backing and make it difficult to put a new picture in, because the same was true for this. It had some type of artwork in it before, and so I had to pull these sides apart and glue them back at the corners, and it's really not worth it. I love this frame, especially for this photo, but I would not do it again. So I'm like, I have one, that's good enough for me. These, however, do have where you can pull these tabs up and reclose them, put something in and reclose them. So I also try to avoid having the one that I have to change the hardware out myself, or add hardware to it, especially because I find so many that are not like that and that are easy. For smaller frames, go ahead and cut out several pieces of paper that are that size, because then you don't feel the pressure to make a picture perfect in that one shot. You can do multiple and then frame your favorite, but you can even swap them out if you have more than one favorite, or just frame multiple like I do. And I actually bought these thinking that either I would start selling them or give them as gifts, but I really liked them and I decided to keep them because I don't know if other people will appreciate it or care or like it. And I know that I do because I paint the things that I like. Other people can enjoy them when they come over and see them or in my videos. And I thought it might be too repetitive to have the same frame. I have 5 of those, but it actually has been really helpful. It gives kind of a cohesive look throughout the home because I keep them in different rooms. So if you can, go ahead and buy multiples of the same type of frame, especially at Dollar Tree, because their inventory changes, and even from location to location, they may not have the same thing. So if you really like a frame, go ahead and get it. I felt ridiculous for that at first, but I have seriously used all of the ones that I've purchased. Also, speaking of cohesion, before we talk about the next several tips, let me go ahead and say I realize that this background is not like a perfect, beautiful, gorgeous, stunning gallery wall. Let me just show you. It's not very cohesive. That's because that's not typically how I have it's set up, because I keep a lot of this artwork in different locations around my house, and I just wanted to be able to show in the background and for the thumbnail kind of this example. So they also might be a little crooked, but you know, just ignore that. Also, this one, I have like sticky glue on the back of it, but it wouldn't stay centered. And so when I have it resting on the bottom, it will stay in place. So I understand that can bother other people, but it doesn't bother me. So do what you can, work with what you've got. Also, I'm pretty sure the only one that is 100% cotton is this one. And so if you don't have 100% cotton paper yet, that is okay. You can still make beautiful artwork that you love. I actually started watercolor because I kept seeing beautiful watercolors that I just wanted to buy, but I couldn't make a decision. But I also knew that I liked painting already because I had done a lot of acrylics ever since high school, and I used them to decorate my home. And I knew that it would be a fun way to spend time not staring at a screen and developing a skill, and that would allow me to change out the paintings anytime I wanted, which I do frequently, even with my acrylics. And so that can just give a different feel to the room and kind of inexpensively update things, because I get really overwhelmed buying home decor, and especially things that quickly go out of fashion. But this has been even better than I imagined, and I even ended up getting rid of most of my acrylic paints. So I'm kind of obsessed with watercolor now, hence this channel. Okay, so fourth, I cut my watercolor papers with this. And I will link to it in the description because I cannot cut straight and it's really frustrating. But for framing watercolors, I will then cut around the edges just with scissors if I need to, in order to adjust the angle, or if I'm a little bit off-centered. That's okay when I'm putting it in a frame because the edge is not going to be seen. I actually broke this frame while I was in Dollar Tree trying to film. And so I was like one-handed and whatever. So I knew that I liked the look of the mat and like it without a frame, so I just bought it anyway. And even the lady at the checkout was like, this one's broken, and like put it to the side, and I was like, no, I still want it, plus I'm the one that broke it. And I was like, I will use it without the glass. And so I really like how it turned out, and I was gonna buy this one anyway. I did think it was very cute. But I would say don't put them near your sink, just so that water isn't splashing on them. And if you do still have the glass in the frame, you can actually use that to frame your photo. And I wanted to go ahead and talk about this one. I do not love this picture in here because I feel like, well, I didn't love the painting to begin with, but it's the only one I could find that would fit in here without having to cut it. And this is a new frame, so I was just doing it for this video, but I may frame this one. And so it's really easy to tell a picture that you like. Just be careful that the glass doesn't fall through. And this is just a little doodle that I did. It's not watercolor, it's just a pen. So this is not centered on this piece of paper, but I can use the glass to see where it is centered and know which area to cut off. But you can still do that. Be careful with glass. With the piece of paper that it comes in. Also, this is a 2.5 by 3.5 inch or 6 by 9 centimeter frame. So you can put this behind it, and I don't know if you can tell, but I can tell in certain lighting. Let me just turn it for you. Ruining my setup, but okay. I can tell where the paper is behind it so that I can center it and cut those edges. You can also use this as a template to cut your water paper from the beginning and just leave a little extra on the outside in case yours is off centered. Then you can cut it and correct that. At least that's what I do most of the time. And sometimes these papers don't fill in the whole frame anyway. Like there's a little bit of a gap around the edges for some wiggle room, so you can actually have your picture a little bit bigger than that anyway. I also don't have any watercolor paper that is much larger than an 8 by 10, so I don't buy larger frames. I could and try to piece together several different watercolors, which I may do in the future, but for right now I just stick with 8 by 10 or smaller. Plus, I don't love painting larger paintings, but I'll get into that in another video. One last thing about Dollar Tree frames, they are not all perfect. Now, some of them kind of are, but it's not always easy to tell because a lot of them are wrapped. Some of these things you can tell in advance, but I could not tell how crooked this thing was, and you can see part of this thing that you used to hang it. You can see it from the front if you're beneath it. So if I was hanging a picture, that could annoy me. But I also don't care that much about that kind of thing. This one I could tell, and I knew that it had these like jagged parts, which I can probably just fix, either tuck under or kind of scrape away a little bit. But again, it's so cute otherwise that does not bother me. But if it bothers you, either inspect the frames really well or just don't get them. And even the ones from the thrift store, they have some scratches, but we move so much that I feel like ours are gonna get like that anyway. And it makes me feel better if they're way less expensive, and then if they get a little damaged, they already were like that. Plus charm and character and relatability as I'm getting scarred by life throughout the years. But even those imperfect frames can take a painting from just okay to being rather nice. Okay, my final tip is to pay attention to the colors in the frame and in the photo. And as an artist, you may know this, and you may also disagree with my method. But if you like my framing, here is something to think about. And even if you don't like mine, you can still think about it and apply it in your own way, in your own style. So I actually had this one in a different frame, and it was in one of these lighter ones, and I didn't love it, especially because I had painted the background this light blue, and I really liked this with a pure, like more of a pure white cream background. When I saw this frame with the black, I realized this also has black in it, and so I decided to put this one in here, and I do like it a lot better. That's just dust. Okay. So I try to only do 3 sides of this because I feel like they will pop off eventually if I use them so much. So I just use 3 sides at a time, enough to pull this out and put a picture, slip a picture in the back, and then close them. So another example is this photo, and I was inspired to paint that one by a different photo, and it was in a black frame. This one is more of a slate gray frame, but that was still close enough for me. And because the hair is kind of a gray color, I thought it worked really well. I'm gonna go ahead and frame this one. So, I mean, this one's pretty crazy. Like, it's not even a finished painting really. It's just one that I saw that I hadn't framed, and it was already cut to this size. So this one is really simple. There is an edge to the back. So kind of interesting. Also, you can see a little bit of the glue or white at the bottom, but again, that's okay. I think this is so unique and cute and looks kind of like a gallery type thing, especially if I put a different picture in here. I would love that. So very easy to just slip in. It's harder to take it out, especially without like scratching that, but I did it and it was fine. I also wanted to show another example of just how plain and simple a picture can be, and then you give it a unique frame and it can look pretty cool. So, well, I think. I haven't put it in here yet. So I am just undoing 3 of these, as I said before. 2 and 3. Then pulling this out. And I do like that these can just sit around. I put this size in my bathrooms. Okay. Ooh, this one's a tight fit. I actually should probably cut it because I think I had it in another frame before. And then, that's kind of cuter. Yay! So for that one, you could see I had very neutral colors and a very neutral frame, and I really like that look. My next video will be a tutorial on my very first watercolor painting that I was actually proud of, and now looking at it I'm like, but I still use this and keep it framed in my home, and I still like it. I just don't look too closely. But I'll actually be painting a different one to give an example, like while I'm painting it, because I don't think I filmed myself painting this one when I first started. But again, I liked it so much that I did another one, and actually did give some of these as gifts. So I think I painted like 3 more and gave them away in a frame like this already. And so one of these is in my living room and one of them is in my bathroom. And it's one of the few things I can paint that I can kind of paint from memory. I don't have to look at something else to paint it. And that's what my first 3 tutorials are gonna be like. Oh, and I'll also show you how terrible my paintings were before that. So don't forget to like and subscribe if that sounds interesting to you, and happy painting and framing. I also have another channel that is all about simplifying life at home to make room for what matters most. So I include some of my watercolor paintings towards the end of a lot of those videos, especially lately. So if you'd like to see some of that while you wait for the next video on this channel, you can go check it out at The Clutter Lady, which I will link to in the description. Oh, and this was from the thrift store. The artwork was from someone on Instagram that I found. And then these are my watercolor paintings in front of it with some similar colors. I also got this frame from the thrift store, but as you can see, I didn't put a watercolor in it. I just put a magazine picture that I really liked.